For nearly 2 decades, her entire world was one small stall. She had never wandered through a pasture or felt the freedom most cows take for granted. I often wondered if she would ever learn to trust, until one ordinary afternoon changed everything. She was 19 years old when she came to us. She had been born blind, and from the beginning her world had been smaller than most. She had spent her entire life on a dairy farm. Instead of wide fields, she had lived inside a stall. She had never wandered through open pastures with other cows. She had never learned the shape of distant trees or followed the morning sun across a field. Her days had stayed quiet and familiar. The farmer had cared about her in his own way. When she stopped producing milk, he could not bring himself to send her to slaughter. He allowed her to stay, but her life changed very little. The walls around her remained the same, and the world beyond them was still only something she could imagine through sounds and scents carried by the wind. Eventually, she was welcomed into our sanctuary because we believed she deserved something different. We knew she could not see, so we tried not to rush anything. When she first arrived, she hardly moved. She simply stood there with her ears gently turning toward every sound. She listened to footsteps, birds, gates opening, and our voices nearby. Every small noise helped her understand where she was. She did not seem frightened as much as uncertain. She had entered a place she could not recognize. Nothing around her was familiar yet. We understood that trust would not arrive all at once. We spoke softly before coming close. We kept our movements slow. We let her discover each new part of her surroundings in her own time.
Helen's listening to her wind chimes, getting a tush scratch.
We also made small changes that fit the way she experienced the world. A gentle water fountain gave her a steady sound to follow whenever she wanted a drink. We placed wind chimes around the pasture so their quiet music could guide her home. We set out a sturdy brush where she could rub against it whenever she wanted comfort or a gentle scratch. None of those things seemed important by themselves, but together they helped her feel more confident each day. Weeks passed without much excitement. She settled into simple routines. She learned where her water was. She found the brush on her own. She recognized our familiar voices and waited calmly whenever we approached. Every ordinary day added another small piece of trust. Then, during an afternoon of regular chores, something gentle happened. I was out in the pasture working, just like any other day. She slowly walked toward me. She stopped beside me for a brief moment. Then, she leaned her whole body against me. She pressed her head into my shoulder and rubbed her neck softly, staying close without any hesitation. She did not seem to be asking for anything. She simply wanted to stay there for a while. I did not need anyone to explain what that moment meant. She was no longer only adjusting to a new home. She had begun choosing us. She had found comfort in our presence, and she was quietly offering her trust in return. After that day, I began noticing small changes in her every week. Nothing happened all at once. It was simply a collection of quiet moments that slowly became part of our everyday life. She started exploring the pasture more often. She decided where she wanted to stand and who she wanted to be near. She greeted the other cows with calm curiosity. She enjoyed gentle company, whether it came from people or animals. If I stood quietly nearby for long enough, she would usually find me. She reached forward carefully until her head rested against my shoulder or my arm. Her kindness never felt hurried. It was patient and steady. Visitors often noticed how peaceful she was. Many expected a blind cow to seem nervous, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. She listened carefully before every step. She trusted familiar voices. She accepted gentle touches and sometimes waited for one more before walking away. The pasture gradually became her favorite place. She spent long mornings grazing at an easy pace. Sometimes I found her resting beneath the open sky. Other times, she simply stood still while the breeze moved across her face. The wind chimes became part of her daily routine. I often watched her pause beneath them, listening as they rang softly with each passing breeze. I never really knew what she was thinking during those moments. Maybe she simply enjoyed the sound. Maybe it helped her understand where she was. All I knew was that she always seemed peaceful there. Music also became part of her routine. Whenever we played the Hawaiian version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, she often stopped what she was doing. She stood quietly with her ears relaxed, as if she recognized something familiar in the melody. Before long, it became one of the sounds I connected most with her new life. I never believed we had fixed everything. She was still blind. She still depended on familiar sounds, routines, and voices to understand her surroundings. Some days were easier than others. Life continued much as life always does, with quiet successes mixed among ordinary moments that most people would never notice. When I look back, what stays with me most is not one single event. It is the collection of small moments. I remember her leaning gently against me. I remember the soft ringing of the wind chimes. I remember the steady sound of the little water fountain. I remember quiet afternoons in the pasture while she grazed nearby. Those simple memories slowly became the story of her new home. Her days continued, one season after another. There was never a perfect ending waiting ahead. Only another morning, another familiar voice for her to recognize, another walk across the grass, and another chance to stand beneath the wind and listen. Living beside her has reminded me that trust often grows through ordinary days instead of extraordinary moments. If you're thinking about welcoming a rescued or special needs animal into your life, I hope you'll take time to learn about their needs, talk with experienced caregivers, and make sure you're truly ready. And if her story stayed with you today, thank you for spending these quiet moments with us. Feel free to like, share, or subscribe if you'd like to continue following her journey.